Hello, I'm Steve. A little about myself. I'm a retired law enforcement officer with 20 years of service. I began my career in the jail, worked the road, and became an investigator. During my career, my training consisted of everything from SWAT to becoming a state certified crime scene technician. I've investigated crimes from thefts to homicides. After retiring and becoming aware of true crime and web sleuths, I started my channel for web sleuths to better understand the perspectives of law enforcement. Not only do we cover true crime, I go out into the field and assist families who have lost loved ones to homicide and their cases are considered cold. Join me as we look and bring attention to these critical cases.
Hello, everyone. Welcome. If you're new to the channel, I'm glad that you're here. And while you're here in chat, we'll have a short presentation tonight, be discussing certain rulings, of course, regarding Richard Allen and the case of Abby and Libby and the homicides which occurred in Delphi. But as we go through the court systems and justice for Abby and Libby, always be mindful while you're in chat to be respectful of families, mods, and each other. And if you have any questions regarding this, absolutely throw them in chat. I'll try to get to them as best as I can. But before we get started in that, of course, if you have any information regarding this case, absolutely make sure that law enforcement, prosecution, defense, anyone involved in this case has that information so that justice can be found for Abby and Libby. And with that being said, let's get into it, and I'll discuss certain things about a conversation I had with Mrs. Steve earlier today as we were prepping for a show. If you hear a dog whining in the background, that's because Mrs. Steve is next door babysitting, and our youngest, Penny, our youngest dog, is wishing to be part of the show. But Mrs. Steve and I were discussing certain things about this case and what was going on and how we were going to, of what the findings, what effect would it have on the trial, for the fact that when you read of what the judge ruling about not allowing this third party inclusion of alternate suspects in, what effect does that have? While it may limit the defense in certain abilities as far as cloud the issue, it really doesn't change the state's of their duty to prove the case against Richard Allen. Everything the state has to do is true prior to this ruling and will continue throughout, that they would always have this standard of being able, or would have the standard that they still have to prove this case that Richard Allen is the one responsible for the deaths of Abby and Libby. And so that hasn't changed at all. And then when we go into the filings, and of course, there's a lot of people out there that have covered this and look at it. And if you want to hear it as it's broken down word by word, of course, you can go in there and read them. But basically, the judge in this says that there's nothing that the case law is quite clear that the nexus must not be based on speculation, conjecture, rumors, or hearsay, but rather on admissible evidence. And simply saying that if you don't have admissible evidence, we're not going to let you bring in any one third party. And how can she do such a thing as taking such a strong stance and not allow the defense to cloud the issues? It's because there's precedents set within our court system that says that this can occur and should occur. But as I was talking to Mrs. Steve, I also advised her that a part of this order, in closing, the court will allow the evidence to support an offer of proof at the trial will be allowed if one is made by counsel. And so when I told Mrs. Steve that, she says, well, pretty much the judge didn't really do anything because while they have taken it off of the table here currently, she still left the door and the opportunity for the defense to be able to bring in whatever is needed as far as third party. But all they have to do is they're going to have to go and find that evidence. Now, will they be able to find the evidence? I mean, we're talking about some skilled attorneys that absolutely will, bring forth their best efforts, and that have been in these predicaments before. They understand the court system. They'll go out there, and if there is that best evidence that will allow this offer of proof, and that's all the court is asking, that right now you haven't met the criteria that says that you can bring in that third party. But if you have even up until the time of trial and through the courts that you can do that. And so, of course, there's going to be a great debate out there among a lot of creators, and they're going to be saying that, well, absolutely, this has absolutely destroyed the defense's whole opportunity to give Richard Allen a fair trial. There's nothing that says that that he still can't have a fair trial. Just by taking this third party defense, of being able to bring it in, that it's always been the same standard has always been there, that they have to satisfy the court's evidence that it should be allowed. And if they meet that standard, it's going to get in there, guys. So nothing has changed as far as what that means towards the court system. But before we get too much further in this, let's see what's going on in chat. All right. Yeah, let's see here. See who's all here. Appreciate everybody coming in. Hello, Junior Johnson. Good to see you. Junior says that the judge is saying, don't drive your clown car to the courthouse. Pretty much. That's one of the things that if you're going to bring and try to, and there's still, like I said, in the totality of this order, there's really not been anything really taken off other than the judge is making the defense aware that you haven't met the standard yet. You meet that standard, and I'm going to allow it. But they have to meet that standard. And when that comes in, hey, it's fair game. Sammy says that the judge has been correct in her rulings against the ridiculous motions filed by the inept defense. Of course, Sammy is open to his views of how he views the defense, and if he describes them as inept, of course, that's his personal opinion. I think they're adequate, and now while they in certain filings and allowing certain manners of with that, what was it, 136-page Frank's motion of this fantastic fantasy-driven, of whatever way I looked at it, of brief, of clouding and bringing all this stuff that everyone, when they first read that Frank's motion, they thought, oh my goodness, this is such a index of evidence that's at the crime scene, and that it's all truth. And is that really what was in that Frank's motion? And when you look at what the state's explanation of the events and what evidence is at the scene, and you see what the Frank's motion is of this third party, we're on opposite poles of exactly, and where is the truth? It's somewhere in the middle, guys. And that truth, when it's presented to the jury, that the facts that the defense tried to bring up in the Frank's motion of this 136-page that everything was conducted by and at the crime scene by the Odinists. If you just take the Odinists out of there and put any offender, regardless if it's Richard Allen or some other tentacle of this, as has been addressed, that there may be others involved, that it may not be the Odinists, but it could still, that even the defense will have to twist it that there's another, how can we fight and stop the introduction of some of this evidence into the situation. So we'll just have to see how it goes and everything, but there's really not that much been changed on it. All right. Hello, Ziggy. There's Eileen. Good to see you. Olivia, Jill. Let's see. Bama was over on the member show that I had earlier tonight. We had back-to-back shows, so you're not late. Hello, Pitbull. Good to see you. Happy Wednesday, Mr. Steve, Mr. and Mrs. Good to see everyone. Glad that you're here. Junior Johnson's up in Michigan tonight. Hello, Sensei. Good to see you. Hello, Cindy. Molly, good to see you. Glad you're here. There's Dandy Linus. Good to see you. Don't want to get too far behind on what's going on. See if there's any questions right quick. Nightbot's active. Hello, Nightbot. Jonathan Clark. $2 super sticker. Thank you. Appreciate your support. Actually, we're going to be going on the road next week. I was contacted reference of one of our cold cases, and I'm going to be going up into the Midwest relatively quickly. Gail, how are you today? Says, hello, Webbers. And I got everything delivered to Ruckus. He went through the all your gifts to him and thanks. And he, I don't know at what point he'll be, but he did look at the doll that you sent, Gail. And he said, yes, that did look like him. YouTube replier, all BS after all. Yes, I mean, there's really not much anything done. Let's see here. Jonathan Clark. All right. And Gail says, has gifted 5 True Crime Web memberships. Thank you, Gail. Appreciate your support. And Jonathan, $3 super sticker. Thank you. But I was amazed when this Steve, as we was having that conversation, and I gave her both polls of that. She says the third party, and you won't be able to bring any of these names of these accused into the case without evidence. And then she opened the door that, yes, if you bring in the evidence, then you most certainly can, but that's going to be at a later date. So she just postponed it. She gave warning to these. Well, it's probably not warning is the proper word for it, but in this finding, she gave them an avenue that, the court will entertain that evidence. You just got to make sure that it's something that says that there is evidence of their involvement. And so more than just the hearsay, the rumor, conjecture, speculation, that you have to have something proving that someone was there that could be a third party. Gail Hurd says, thank you for getting Ruckus his package. Absolutely. Thank you for your support. I've been a member for 13 months. Let's see here. Jonathan, now we're up to $4 super sticker. Thank you. Appreciate that. I'm beginning to see a pattern here. Oh, May, thank you. That's we'll be using that next week. Yes, Molly, it was very kind of Gail to send that package to Ruckus, and I went over there and, like I said, we did some work on one of the code cases that I'm going up into the Midwest next week on. That's a unplanned some meetings that the family had made me aware that was going to be working on. I thought I had a couple more weeks to work on it, but I will be going up there to meet with some people next week. So a little bit earlier than I thought. So Hello, Hayes. Good to see you. I will tell hello to Mrs. Steve. I'm glad that you're feeling better. I know you were feeling bad there for a while. Glad that you're feeling better. Molly says, apparently getting third-party defense is very difficult, particularly in Indiana. Whatever the court rulings for Indiana or other courts, I don't know. Does it really bother me if they bring in something? No. I honestly think that in my limited knowledge of how the court systems work, that there should be enough evidence of against an individual that no matter what the defense throws on the wall, that it can't stick. I know that because juries, while it can cloud the issues and everything, true facts that are proven by professionals and by the evidence and by science and presented properly, that I believe that our jurors, while, they're not, sometimes we look at the jury system, we say, well, that's not the verdict that we agree with. It's still the verdict. But I give our, all in all, our juries are extremely intelligent. And when you bring a group of individuals together, those 12 minds, that absolutely the level of intelligence and their ability to see through all the clouded issue, the BS, whatever you want to say, is greater than we give them credit for it a lot of times. And occasionally we do see what we, in our opinions, that on certain cases that we say, well, the jury got it wrong. Regardless if our personal opinions of juries getting it right or wrong, it's still the verdict, and the courts recognize it, and we have to go by it regardless if we agree with it on a personal level, because there's going to be another sector of society that 100% agrees with that verdict regardless. There's always going to be people on both sides. That's just the way our system works. Hello, BG, OG. Olivia too says, I'm anxious to see what's next or happens next. Absolutely. If there is evidence out there that says other people, and the court left that door open and they haven't shut it totally, that there is other evidence that someone else committed this crime rather than Richard Allen, it's there, guys, that the court says that if you bring that evidence to us, we will look at it. We will allow it. The jury can listen to it, but you're going to have to bring the evidence that they are involved, not just through your interpretation of what certain things say, and not even when you have someone that says, hey, I was there. I know certain facts that are unknown, and how will we address those issues? I think that certain things are going to get into trial, regardless of how much the court and the defense will haggle over these issues. And the prosecution, of course, will try to suppress any abilities of the defense trying to bring in some of this information. But I think the defense will get more in than what we think that this order will stop. I think we're going to see that it's not over, guys. It really isn't. And I think that we will see some third-party information coming in because that's the way our court systems are. Gil, gifted a True Crime Web membership. Thank you, Gil. And through this nexus and simply what this nexus means that you'll see in a lot of these legal terms is that there has to be that they're asking that a connection or link between things, person, or events that is part of a chain of causation, that you just can't say that, these people are part of this cult. And if you're saying that these are the individuals responsible, that it's going to take more of that. You're going to have to find somebody within that cult or someone that is responsible for it that could have caused or done this, that we have, that don't have alibis or don't have certain outs. Molly says, True Crime Web, we need puppy cam. Yeah, we do. We do need a puppy cam. That's a brilliant idea. I'll just have to figure out how to get puppy cam in. Let's see here. BG again. Let's see here. Just trying to keep up with what's going on. Hello, Sherry Faye. Good to see you. Lori Southern says, which states are you going through? I'll be up in Missouri. That's where I'm heading to for 2 or 3 days next week. Yes, Ruckus is a doll. Yes. And it did favor him. He even looked at it, so that doll favored him. Junior, a Ruckus doll would scare little kids. True. Cryptex, good to see you. CJK says, I guess some of his supporters went nuts today, went on the social media streets. Probably so, for the fact that they see that this is really his biggest out, that they, and it's a hard blow to their sense of how justice is. But like I said, it doesn't change anything about the state's responsibility to prove that Richard Allen is guilty of these crimes with the evidence that the state has against him. And that evidence is going to have to be those lab reports, the bullet, whatever they have as far as the witnesses, the timeline, even Richard Allen's confessions, regardless of how many of them, what did he say? For the fact that, what does it change that if they can't bring in a third party defense, that, and even the third party defense doesn't mean that Richard Allen wasn't there, that Richard Allen wasn't a party to this, if we say that there was more than one. For the fact that if in those confessions that we have information that Richard Allen says that no one would know, just like I had the show the other night, that with these 6 factors plus the key information, as that multiplier effect that only someone at the crime scene would have. So, and if that's part of the state's presentation, it doesn't matter. You could have that, oh, there was 50 people there. Well, we know one party that was there, and that'd be whoever confessed to it that knew details about that crime that shouldn't know details about that crime. And so what is that? For the fact that we have to look at that the state had a lot of opportunity with other parties that they could have easily blamed at any moment. If you look at Keegan Klein, who of us that was sitting on a jury looking at the information that was in those transcripts of his interview wouldn't instantly say, oh, Keegan was absolutely a party involved. And then with Logan, the same thing with FBI, with their affidavit of saying, absolutely, this is someone that was involved, played a role, played a part. And so, and the state on many occasions throughout this investigations has some easy outs as far as if they just wanted to press the charges and try to get out of it easy way. But they held on and investigated and pushed it until they had some type of evidence that is irrefutable as far as what they believe will convince a jury of that they have the right individual that was at the crime scene, that is responsible for the deaths and of Abby and Libby. And so with that information, we have to give the state credit that if they bypassed all these other easy cases that would have been an easy charge that anyone would have, or you would think that most judges would have at least signed a arrest order or affidavit for them, but they didn't even seek those. So, Cryptex. Let's see here. Molly says, if they're good defense lawyers, they will use those skills on cross to drop hints about third party as well as every LE error possible. I don't think this automatically means make a deal. Well, Ruckus and I, we were discussing yesterday over lunch that in my live that I had the other week, and Ruckus brought it up again in his, that we both see that these attorneys, upon seating or impaneling this jury, that's going to be their moment of that. If the defense absolutely gets the perfect jury there, they have a shot at regardless. It doesn't matter that maybe they'll be able, but they'll have a clear understanding that if everyone that they wish to be on that panel is on the jury panel, they'll know at that moment that, yes, we have a shot at getting a hung jury, or we have a shot at finding not guilty. But if they're unable to put anyone that they think will side with their opinion, then of course we may see a change of plea and go down that road with Ruckus as far as or even with Molly here about make a deal. Don't know. Therapists may see an uptick in new business. Yeah. Oh yeah. For as far as some of these people will be screaming from the mountaintops that Richard is being railroaded. But no, the courts are going to guarantee that we have a fair trial. There's no railroad to it, guys. The state still has to present that evidence and convince 12 people. It's one thing if you say, well, everybody, and there's no way that you can find 12 impartial people in the state of Indiana that have limited knowledge or haven't formed an opinion about the guilt of Richard Allen. Even in these YouTube channels, you see people on both extremes. You see the ones that absolutely believe Richard Allen is the one that's responsible, and you see others on the opposite extreme that says Richard Allen is not responsible. And so you have to understand that within these two poles, everybody in the spectrum between those, there are going to be 12 people or more when we have the alternates of the jurors brought in that will have to be convinced of his guilt. They're not going to go up there saying, well, I'm pretty sure he's guilty, but you're going to have to prove he's innocent. That's not going to be the case. We're going to have people that have limited knowledge, if any knowledge of this case, and have developed no opinion as to his innocent or guilt. And that's what we're going to work on. Mr. Steve, any thoughts on what was discussed behind closed doors this morning at the status hearing number 2? No, not so much with the courts. I think that you would see behind closed doors between the defense attorneys and Richard Allen what was going on, and we could speculate as far as that. But what the courts is possibly asking, is that is maybe some opinions of direct communication and clarifying with Richard Allen himself. Are you satisfied with your representation? How is it going? Is there anything that the courts need to clarify for you? And maybe something along those lines of just trying to protect Richard Allen's rights and making sure that he's open and aware of everything going on. That's just my personal opinion. But now when you get the behind closed doors between Richard Allen and his defense attorneys, I'm sure they're discussing in great details what their strategy is and what this means for the case and how should we proceed. And that's going to be huge as we move forward. Hello, Cold Truth. Good to see you. Glad you're here. Check out Cold Truth's channel. Olivia says, I hope Libby and Abby's families felt more hopeful today. I believe so. And I'm sure it's bittersweet. Junior Johnson. I'll shave my head and go as Ruckus for Halloween. That's funny right there. Oh, me. Cryptex, Steve, do you think the client's angle is over, or is there still something there? There's always that possibility. I mean, only for the fact that we don't know when Abby and Libby became targeted. We don't know. We know that they were catfished, and we don't know all the devices out there and what information is on them and who else may have catfished them in addition to Klein. Just don't know. But there's always that possibility. So until we see it finalized, and unless Richard Allen tells us, or the courts or the evidence tells us what exactly is going on, we may never know of the true involvement of when the catfishing and how big of a part that catfishing played in this. Sounds like a pup wants to sit on Steve's knee and say hello to us all. No, it was watching out the door, waiting for Mrs. Steve to come in from next door. Hello, Blackwater. Good to see you. Steve, this may be a graphic question. In your opinion, why the sticks were placed above the necks of the girls undoing? Yes, both of them had that cross member. Is it something that, and that's very observant of you, and some of the profilers would look at that and address that issue, that we do have that cross member, and did that serve some purpose? What did it mean? And only the offender, the placement of those sticks were very deliberate, in my opinion. And they're not just tossed or thrown, that there was something there. And they were placed there for a reason. Will that reason ever be made public by the person responsible? I hope so. Because we know it something that did not play a role as far as in the death, but it did play a role in the mind of the offender for him to take the time to create and place those sticks in that manner. That's just my personal opinion. But it did serve a purpose to him, and that's a very good observation, Cryptex. Bama says, Mr. Steve, have you listened to Aspen and Turbo's reporting on hearings? No, I haven't. I watched some of Ruckus's show the other evening, but no, I haven't watched it. I am so far behind. Molly says, Cryptex, I still can't quite let go of the KKTK. Glad I'm not the only one. Yeah, I can't get rid of it either because there's some weird stuff there. Yeah, Bama, poor Penny wants her mama. You better believe it. Mm. Olivia says her dog is looking at her phone when Penny was crying. Elevate the process. Good to see you. But we're a 15-year-old spoiled rotten chihuahua would beagle howl for his daddy if he was abandoned. I'm telling you, those dogs. Molly says, I heard everyone was losing their minds on the Twitters. And I don't really see why they are so upset right now. The court laid out that there is a road to the third party. And it's just simply that the court will allow that evidence to support an offer of proof at the trial if one is made by counsel. So the court will allow it. All they have to do is an offer of proof of the evidence at trial, and they will allow it. And Junior, yeah, I'm absolutely on your side. I think Nick has a lot more evidence. Absolutely. Code Truth says that extremism is toxic in this community. And it's just not this case, that regardless of the cases, occasionally you'll have one like the Long Island serial offender that maybe not as extreme, but with Koberger, it's going to be the exact same thing. It's going to be toxic. You're going to have those set positions on each pole. Steve, we know you have worked in multiple crime scenes. Do you remember a similar crime scene, something similar to Delphi's? There's always, it doesn't matter if it's Delphi or otherwise, when you have sharp bladed instruments, or if you have any type of blood spatter, cast off, transfers, they all work the same. Doesn't matter if it's inside, outside, gravity still affects it. Whatever surfaces, there's still analysis to be done, and so you just have to go out there and work it. But of two victims in an outside scene, I've worked the majority of all mine. While we had Delphi investigations outsides, the majority of all ours or mine were inside. So now, while I have seen and studied, and part of my training involved outside crime scenes from those, but it's not cases I worked. It may have been cases that we used in training. Al on the prowl. Good to see you. CJK says, what I found sickening are the jurors who said innocent in Casey Anthony's case, but they felt she was guilty, but yet the state didn't prove it. Jury allowed the offender of her child to go free. Oh, yeah, that's a very polarized case. No ifs, ands, or buts about that. Sherry Faye says, Steve, do you think there would be a plea deal? I think there may be a change of plea, absolutely, but I think that will occur after the impaneling of the jury. Witchcraft, good to see you. Rebecca Bruce says, I'm late. No, you're not. You're fine. What did I miss? Didn't miss a lot. We're just trying to, like I said, Mrs. Steve says that there's not much to what the judge found today, especially since they will allow the other to come in if evidence is proven. Periwinkle. And Junior, yes, I think if Keegan had anything to do with this case, he would have made a deal with the prosecutor. And who knows? I mean, like I said, we won't know that until until trial. Teresa, good to see you. Mr. Steve, you should listen while driving to Missouri. Podcasts help miles go by faster. Mr. Steve, people in a different live were asking if anyone has seen the jury questionnaire yet. Isn't that a confidential process? I don't know how Missouri handles that. Of course, the court would have. I know we saw. I think it was with the Koberger case, whereas some of those questions of that were released, did it lead the jurors down certain paths, and that the questionnaire was something that was prejudicial. But I think the courts will be able to. I don't know what the process is there. I'll have to look that up. Yeah, Bama saying that was a terrible thing that occurred. Steve, do you think they will find 12 jurors to agree? I absolutely hope so. And the majority of the time, 12 jurors do agree that, we have far more findings of guilt or innocence with 12 jurors than we have hung juries, or at least in my experience. So I do think that they'll find 12. Periwinkle says, do we know any of what R.A. said in his confessions? Wondering why. There's hints at everything that only information known to the offender is in some of those statements. And what are those key points? And how huge and how strong are those issues? So we'll have to see. Gail says, true crime. If Nick has more evidence, doesn't he have to show the defense and judge pretrial? Absolutely. It'll be in the discovery. Rebecca says, my apologies. I'm trying to get caught up. So Steve saw the crime scene photos. If you're talking about what the leaked images are, I have seen some leaked images. I just do not know how accurate. Don't know if they were photoshopped. Don't know anything about them, what generation they were, because there's so much. And that's one reason I've stayed away from a lot of the discussions about images, that you have to qualify it for the fact that just because you see something in a photo doesn't mean it's absolutely correct, because certain things can be edited in, edited out, and but a lot of people looked at those images and they say that those are the crime scene photographs. They could be one of a series, but there's going to be hundreds, if not thousands, of crime scene images. And the only ones that have seen those are people involved in the case that processed the scene, defending the case, and the experts that are offering opinions in it. Everyone else hasn't seen the crime scene photos in full. and I haven't either. Does the judge see all the evidence before the trial? No. I don't know what Missouri does, but I don't think. Cryptex. Steve, what is your take about the old bridge guy sketch versus the young bridge guy sketch? It gives me a headache. All of Doug Carter's talking about, well, you take the two, put them together and remove them, and then you have BG or you have Richard Allen. It's always driven me crazy. And I think that cause more issues and will cause some issues even with the trial as we move forward because that, just never understood it, still don't understand it. I thought it was said no 2 marks on the sticks. It may be true, but I've always wondered that in the handling and the placing of that stick, is it possible that the offender's DNA is on those sticks in certain positions of where it was handled through skin cells, body fluids, or injury or blood? As I did a test on those sticks, that if you processed them with some type of chemical, you may be able to see exactly where those sticks were handled, how they were placed, and in those areas, could you get possibly a combination of both the victims and the offenders, a mixture of DNA? Absolutely, in my opinion, it's possible. Gabriel, good to see you. Glad that you're here tonight. Cryptex. Steve, why do you think the offenders left the Libby's phone at the crime scene and not being discarded in the creek? That is a fascinating thing. Why? And how did that occur? I have no idea. And only the offender will be able to explain that. It makes no sense to me. Barbara Hall's here tonight. Good to see you. If y'all are not familiar with Barbara Hall, she is the mother of Timmy D's case. And if you'll look up Timmy D's case, you will absolutely see where Barbara has been fighting for justice for quite a while. Glad you're here tonight, Barbara. Rebecca says, thanks, Molly. I'm excited to catch this live. I used to see Steve on another channel and found out you had one of his own. I'm in the hospital now. Oh, my goodness, with meningitis. But when I get back to work, I'll join. I'm glad that you're feeling better. I hope you're feeling better. Sorry that you went through those issues. Hello, James. Good to see you. Very kind of you, Barbara. Timmy D's case, Barbara was making reference to one of our Timmy D's cases, one of the cold cases that I work in the Midwest in Missouri. For those that are new to the channel. Hello, Look See. Good to see you. Love to hunt. Good to see you. All righty. Well, we got through all of that. But like I said, it was interesting to look at this, but as you know, has a lot changed? Not really. Has it been put on a back shelf for that the courts will allow this third party to come back in, no matter how much the defense screams and the supporters that everything as far as the defense and that Richard Allen's being railroaded, the court has still said that it can be allowed. You're just going to have to have proof, offer of proof of this evidence to show that there's a third party involved. And if that comes, then it will get in there, guys. So not a lot has changed. Mrs. Steve and hers on, I sat there for 15 minutes explaining, and we were discussing, and mostly my side of what I saw and what was going on. And Mrs. Steve looked at me and said, "Oh, well, she pretty much didn't do anything today then." And I just stared at her and shook my head. She got right to the crux of the matter. And I looked at that and realized that there is a certain amount of truth in that not a lot has changed today, guys. Even with this, that while certain people will jump on it, that it's the end of times, that's not the case. Justice can still be found. The state's burden of proof to prove Richard Allen is still there, and it's huge. And it will take a lot of effort on the state's part to explain their story, because they're going to be fought tooth and nail by this defense team. And the defense team, if they can get, when it comes to their side, if they can offer that proof, we may still see that third party brought into the court. And I will not be shocked at all when that happens. All righty, guys. Well, I want to thank everybody for being here. I appreciate everybody. Thanks for all the support tonight. Says Mrs. Steve is a great true crime sleuth. She, like I said, she got to the crux of the matter relatively quick. But want to thank everybody, Jonathan for his super stickers, Gail Hurd for all the members, and absolutely means a lot to this channel. And want to thank everybody for the views. If you like this, give it a thumbs up, share it, send it out there, and I'll be probably doing a show Saturday night, and then doing the members on Saturday too. And also we'll be doing a collaboration with Southern Gal right after my show Saturday night. I've got, like I said, I had an unexpected travel come up for next week, going up into the Midwest. And so we'll see what happens next week. I've got to go up there and work on a code case. But y'all stay safe out there, and we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.